BBC World Service. And now, the fourth in our series, India, a People Partitioned. This week, in Comers and Goers, Andrew Whitehead hears the stories of people on the move and those who chose to stay.
Two sets of border guards. They speak more or less the same language, share the same military traditions, yet every day at sunset they put on a synchronized display of chauvinism and hostility. Wagah in Punjab is the only legal road crossing point between India and Pakistan. A border established 50 years ago which runs for more than 2,000 kilometres. Today, with a perversity all too typical of relations between these uneasy neighbours, only nationals of third countries can cross here. Half a century ago, in the turmoil of partition, there were torrents of refugees heading in both directions. Some columns of the dispossessed were so long they took 24 hours to cross. Not one flag-lowering ceremony, but two, conducted in tandem. Frontier forces from the two countries stomp, glare, and slam the gates shut, in unison, but not in harmony. This almost comical double ceremony has now become a tourist attraction, with grandstand viewing both sides of the border. For most onlookers, it's as near as they'll ever get to the other country. I watched with Kuldeep Nair, an Indian and former newspaper editor. He has keen memories of Wagah. It was at this spot, halfway between Lahore and Amritsar, a few weeks after partition, that he crossed on foot into India, one of millions of migrants.
Well, there were not this fancy border. There were only drums, white painted, 4 or 5 of them, and that really marked the border. And you were coming from that side and you just crossed into India, and that was all. And there was one national flag aloft a pole, this wooden pole. And then as soon as we reached that place where these drums were there, so everybody said, Bharat Mata Ki Jai. That means we had reached India. And then there was a woman who distributed some sweets also. So that's how we came to know that we are in India.
Kuldeep Nair's home city of Sialkot had been awarded to Pakistan. Virtually every non-Muslim chose to leave. Huge caravans of people, their possessions piled high on bullock carts, were crisscrossing the Punjab countryside.
When I came about 20 kilometers out of Sialkot, then I realized that, my God, the whole humanity is on the road. So thousands of people. And I never realized, sitting in Sialkot, that such a migration was taking place. But a strange thing happened when I reached outside Lahore. And now we are a big convoy, after I joined a convoy. And from that side, another convoy was coming. So it was a new no man's land. So they stopped there, and we stopped here. They were Muslims, and we were non-Muslims. And none spoke. We went on looking at each other. They had also left their homes and friends behind, so hadn't we. But there was a strange kind of kinship. It was a kinship of sorrow. We were both were refugees. We both had been broken on the rack of history. So there was a strange kind of relationship.
Once in India, Kuldeep Nair made for Amritsar station. He walked with me along platforms which he remembers crowded beyond capacity, with tens of thousands, all waiting for a train to take them to a safer place.
It was noisy. It was, some people I could see were very angry. Some people very anxious, waiting for others to join them. Some, probably who had lost everything, were thinking of what they had left behind. So it was a very sad spectacle. So there was a lot of noise, but there was a lot of sadness about it.
In those turbulent days, the trains were among the most hazardous means of travelling. Time and again, trains loaded down with refugees were ambushed. Passengers were slaughtered and goods looted as the two sides to the partition conflict, basically non-Muslims pitted against Muslims, waged a savage vendetta. Quratalain Haider, from a prosperous Muslim family, fled with her mother from Dehradun in the North Indian hills amid rumours that Sikhs forced out of Pakistan were about to invade the town.
Everybody was panicking. And I, myself, my mother, we got into a second-class ladies' compartment. And there were 2 or 3 missionary ladies, American missionaries. They were coming down from Missouri. Then the train stopped at midnight in a small wayside station called Doiwala. And it was a group of villagers with big staffs, dandas in their hands. And they were looking inside and they were saying, "Shikar hai, koi shikar hai?" Which is, shikar means, do you have somebody we can kill? My mother looked like a Parsi. Nobody would have thought she's a Muslim. And I was, of course, young, very young. So I remember that these missionary ladies put me under their quilt. And one of them sat on top of it. That good old lady, she sat on top of that quilt and said, no, shikar, jao. So they saw there's one Parsi lady sitting there, there are 3 these American ladies, so they left.
Quratalain Haider and her family eventually made it to Karachi, Pakistan's initial seat of government, and a magnet which drew in hundreds of thousands of Muslims from North India. Muhajirs, they're still called, refugees. Most chose to come to Pakistan. They were not forced to flee in the face of riot and arson. They remain a distinct community. They came in such numbers they were able to bring their Urdu-speaking culture with them. A small, and according to their leaders, much derided minority within Pakistan, they're the majority in Karachi, where in the months after partition they herded into massive refugee camps.
Many people had come as broken families, as people who had been shattered, and had been, they had been victims of the riots and so on. So they were living in huge settlements, and they included a lot of families we knew. And now they had all come to Karachi. So there was a lot of meeting people, you have also come. Are you safe? Have you? And everybody was meeting one another and feeling, we've come out of a nightmare.
For many Muslims, the worst part of that nightmare was deciding whether to go to the promised land, Pakistan, or stay with friends and family in what many feared would be a Hindu-dominated India. There's hardly a Muhajir family in Karachi which hasn't relatives left behind in India. Hardly a Muslim household, in North India at least, which hasn't some cousin, nephew or niece on the other side. Although Pakistan's founder, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, had asked qualified Muslims to come and help set up the new state, no one expected a mass migration from the Muslim minority areas of North India, even though these had been strongholds of Jinnah's Muslim League. No stronghold was more secure than Aligarh Muslim University. Zawar Zaidi was a student there in the mid-40s and canvassed enthusiastically for the Muslim League in the crucial provincial elections which preceded partition.
We had a training camp, about 15 days training, what sort of questions could be asked from us, what sort of reply we shall give, where and how to contact the voters. And, I had a group of students who I would say, Pakistan, Zindabad, leke rahenge Pakistan, we shall have Pakistan, batke rahega Hindustan, India is to be divided. And then they will raise slogans to say, you could find people full of vigor, full of enthusiasm. But I must tell you one thing, this is often asked, are you going to migrate to this new state? And usually our answer was no. People from the Muslim minority provinces, did not think that they would have to migrate to Pakistan.
In the aftermath of partition, Zafar Zaidi went over to Pakistan, along with perhaps the greater part of North India's Muslim middle class. And as so often in the partition era, there was a mirror image dilemma. Hindus in the Karachi area in particular, where many had prospered in business, the professions and the civil service, and where there had been little violence, had to decide whether to accept the mantle of Pakistan or abandon their careers and businesses and move to India. L.K. Advani, a leader of India's Hindu nationalist BJP, was born and brought up in what became Pakistan. At independence in August 1947, he was a full-time worker in Karachi for the hardline Hindu cultural organisation, the RSS.
The question of being loyal to Pakistan, etc., that hardly arose. We were living in our own place. And Pakistan is a kind of an imposition on us. This is our place. That was the feeling at that time. Immediately after 15th August, when people used to ask us, we are leaving, should we go? I would say, no, don't go. We should not go. Why should we go? That was the advice given not only by me personally, but by the RSS as a whole. We'll stay on. We'll stay on. That was the feeling.
Just weeks later, Lal Krishna Advani was on his way to India. For millions, life in a country which had suddenly become alien territory was too unpredictable for comfort. But there's no doubt that Muslims suffered most. As several said to me while I was making these programs, partition may have created a Muslim nation in South Asia, but it's also divided Muslim from Muslim. And the Muhajirs, those North Indian Muslims who chose to migrate to Karachi, still have a burning sense of grievance. Ishtiaq Azza is a prominent figure in the Karachi-based Muhajir Qawmi movement, or MQM, an ethnic-based political party. He says his community were the pioneers of the Pakistan movement, people who uprooted themselves from their homes in North India to serve the new nation.
The Muhajirs there had no intention whatsoever of migrating because they wanted to live in their own areas. They were never in a mood to come to Pakistan. The Muslims of the minority provinces gave greater sacrifices than the people who became overnight Pakistanis.
Overnight Pakistanis. There could be no more damning epithet as the different communities compete to present themselves as the truest patriots. Years of conflict between supporters of the MQM and the Pakistani security forces has taken Karachi to the edge of the abyss. Ghazi Salahuddin, one of Karachi's top journalists, is a Muhajir who came over from North India as a 9-year-old. He says a community which 50 years ago defined itself in terms of religion has now set other benchmarks.
I think that the Muhajirs saw themselves as makers of history when Pakistan was being created, and they have become the victims of history. I mean, they're not immigrants. You see, the very word Muhajir has religious undertones. It's an emotive word. When you become Muhajir, you're doing something that the Holy Prophet had done in a difficult time. And then these Muhajirs occupied government positions and had opportunities to grow. But the local population, the host population, there was linguistic and cultural divide. They did not belong to the same linguistic group, they didn't have the same culture. And ultimately, when the religious passions had subsided, culture became a major issue. And it's my belief that in normal times, culture is larger than religion, because it is language, it is customs, it is the food that you eat and the songs that you sing.
The Muslim culture of North India, much diminished by the scale of the migration, still survives there. Some chose to stay because they were opposed to partition, others because of family and work ties or lack of opportunity. Others again, such as Begum Aizaz Rasool, worked hard to establish Pakistan, but after partition consciously decided not to be part of the exodus.
At that time, conditions were such that Muslims who could afford to go went away. And of course, it benefited a lot of Muslims, there is no doubt about it. Those who would have never had any chance of getting good jobs and all that. But now, in Pakistan, they've got very good jobs, you know. But then my husband and I, we stayed on because the poor Muslims here, the poor people who had voted for Pakistan, will have no one to look up to or to look after their interests. And I said to my husband, we have a moral responsibility. And so we decided to stay on.
The migration was above all of middle-class Muslims who could fill the shoes of the Hindu traders and government officials moving out of Karachi. But today there are still more Muslims in India, just, than in Pakistan. Large parts of southern India, states with sizable Muslim minorities such as Kerala and Tamil Nadu, were almost completely untouched by partition. But in North India, its shadow fell over every Muslim village. Shia Muslims at prayer in Mahmudabad, a small town just outside the North Indian city of Lucknow. 50 years and more ago, it was a stronghold of the pro-Pakistan movement. The local Maharaja was one of the main financiers of the Muslim League. Now, Mahmudabad's Muslims are not sure where their loyalties lie. The old Raja opted for Pakistan. The new Raja lives in India. The dilapidated palace, just across the fish pond from the Shia mosque, self-consciously flies an Indian flag. It's been taken over by the curiously named custodian of enemy properties. The Muslim community has been cut in two, some living modestly in their native Mahmudabad, others almost 2,000 kilometers away in Karachi.
Mahmudabad contributed very much as far as Muslim League is concerned, because here many people joined Muslim League, many people migrated to Pakistan. I think about 30% of Muslims, they left for Pakistan, but the remaining preferred to stay here.
Amar Rizvi, a member of India's Congress Party and a Muslim, represents Mahmudabad in the State Assembly. He describes partition as one of the great tragedies of mankind, a tragedy which has afflicted Muslims, the community which fought for partition, the most.
It's a divided house. Most of the families have one or the other or some 2, 3, 4, 5 persons in Pakistan. That is why they are sympathetic to those families, and because those families are living in Pakistan, so it appears they are sympathetic to Pakistan. They are not sympathetic to Pakistan, but they are sympathetic to their own families.
But apply the cricket test, that litmus test of patriotism, which national team do you support, and most Muslims in Mahmudabad plump for Pakistan. There's a sense of pride that a Muslim nation has made its mark in South Asia, even though many, with a weather eye on the plight of Pakistan's Mahajirs, are happy to stay in India. Soraya Begum observes Purdah. I interviewed her through a curtain in her kitchen in Mahmudabad, and she ran through a list of all her relatives living in Pakistan.
मेरे चचा गए हैं 3 चचा थे मेरे सब भाई माशाल्लाह 5 भाई हैं अल्लाह रखे
My uncles, 3 of my uncles went there, and all my brothers, all 5 of my brothers are living there. And I have sisters there too. Life is difficult here. We don't have enough work. The ones who went have done better. They're living in comfort. They have servants and they're okay for money. We're all right here, but they're all right there as well. The only difference is here, it's more for struggle. There, if you work hard, you can live really well.
Tempering such enthusiasm is another member of the family, Ehsan Mian, who's been to Pakistan and now declares he's one of the few local Muslims who cheers on India's cricket team.
नुकसान क्या नुकसान तो फिलहाल ये हुआ कि काफी मतलब पब्लिक परेशान हुई होती है इधर के उधर.
All the turmoil led to the problems on both sides. Lots of people moved. Over here, business isn't too good. Or there, to be honest, people haven't settled in too well. They don't really feel at home. Our relatives in Karachi have settled and they are doing all right. So people here think everybody there is doing okay. But I have been to Karachi and I have seen for myself most people who have moved there haven't really found their feet.
On the other side of the border, too, there's a lingering unease about who made the right decision all those decades ago. Restrictions on travel have made it more difficult for divided families to keep in contact. But now and again, for the more privileged Mahajir households, a big occasion brings everyone together. A Mahajir marriage in Pakistan. At least a dozen relatives have come over from India to witness the wedding vows.
قبلت النكاح لموكلي هذا أزر عباس من موكلي على المهر المعلوم أنكحت موكلتي وكالة عنها وعن أبي سيد مظاهر حسين من موكلي على المهر المعلوم قبلت النكاح لموكلي.
At the reception in the Services Club in central Karachi, the two wings of a long-divided family embrace, celebrate and wonder which has got the best deal in life. The Pakistani side seem to be better off. The Indians perhaps more at ease with themselves. The hosts admit that family reunions always turn to these sort of questions.
Absolutely, all the time. There's always a political angle to family gatherings between these two countries. So that has been the case with us. We are all comparing notes, we are like
heated
commenting.
Political debates,
absolutely,
mind you.
Every night that we get together.
Every night. Heated political debates, you know.
I don't think we made any mistake by opting for Pakistan. Any event happening in history is an event over which now after 50 years we have no control, and it is very difficult to pass a judgment.
Among the Indian guests, there's an acceptance that the division of families and countries is insuperable, but also just a hint of condescension towards their Pakistani cousins.
They keep coming to India. We never come here because they are from India. So they keep coming there. We are relatively less interested in coming to Pakistan.
My elder sister who came here, she always regretted coming here. Always. But not these kids, not the second generation, not my nephews, not my nieces. They are happy here. And I'm so happy that they are happy here.
The song that they suddenly burst forth into said, Hum ek hain, we are all one, we are all one. Frankly, the idiom now and the terms of references are quite different, although being Muslims, of course, so much is part of the religion. And from that point of view, they are one.
Who did you get to extend your visa? One woman shouts. Just a bit of good-natured badinage. But this family can never forget that it's been split in two. And in Karachi, that nagging doubt about whether your wing of the family made the right decision is not simply found among Muslims. The main Hindu temple in Karachi. There are still at least 50,000 Hindus in the city, many of them poor and low caste, but quite a few prosperous traders and professionals. Among the worshippers, there's a sense of sadness that so many Hindus left at partition time.
Yes, people went at that time. Many people went to India that time. Yes.
Your parents chose to stay?
Yes.
Do you think they feel they were right?
Yes, they were right. I feel they were right because this is our motherland. We born here. We will prefer to stay here.
Are you proud of your country, Pakistan?
Yes, of course. Of course.
This pride in Pakistan is shared by the head of the Hindu community in Karachi, Khubchand Bhatia. He's a wealthy man, a liquor trader, an occupation no Muslim can enter. But he's seen his children, every one of them, leave Karachi for Bombay and indeed Dubai and Chicago. and he's come to believe that the grass is perhaps greener for the Hindus who moved to the other side.
I am proud to be a Pakistani. I had an option to go away from Pakistan, but no, I love my country, I love my place of birth, because in our scriptures it is said that the motherland is more sacred than even the heaven, and I believe it fully in that.
Some Hindus, a lot of Hindus, went to India in 47.
Yeah.
Who made the right decision? Those who stayed or those who went?
Those who went. Those who went, they felt panicky and they started leaving. Because the government officials and the Muslim officers who came from India, they tried to pressurize them, arrest them, so they thought it better to leave. Many have taken very good positions in India, and they are much more prosperous because India is a very big country in comparison to Pakistan. The chances are very bright for business people who do the right business. Many of them left their properties. They're thinking that they will come back, but it never happened. They thought that Pakistan would vanish from the map of India. Pakistan has survived and continues to survive.
People like Kubchand Bhatia continue to have this corrosive, consuming worry that 50 years ago they got it wrong. Staying or going. So many lives have been soured, families rent asunder by the dilemmas thrown up by partition. But these personal sadnesses are as nothing beside the big, unfinished business. The enmity between the two nations themselves, which has tainted the politics and diplomacy of South Asia for half a century.
That programme was compiled and presented by Andrew Whitehead and produced by Zina Rohan. The final programme next week looks at unfinished business.